All right, we're back with another edition of Saturday Smackdown. So I did the 10th version of DVD Mobile Adventures yesterday. I recorded on Thursday, but I put up on Friday. And originally, I wasn't even going to put it up after a while because I just didn't feel like going in my editor. But I just decided since I mentioned Friday, I might as well try to make sure this comes out today. Um, my original plan also was to not do one of those, like less than 2 weeks later. But because of the enormous support, comparatively speaking to other stuff I do for the ninth one, I decided to, I don't want to say rush it out, but expedite it. Like, hey, let's make another one since people actually watch this time. I'm also having a bit of a stomach ache, so if I get up and postpone the stream, I'll do it. It'll be like some other ones I've done where I've had some kind of stomach issue because I mentioned that's always when it happens for whatever reason in the morning. Um, and if that happens again, I'll just end it and then come back. And then, if you can't see it now, you'll see it later. If you don't, presuming that whoever watches goes to do something else. Yeah, I was really surprised, but it's so funny because I remember one of the things I said before was that the DVD stuff is like diminishing returns, the series where like each one gets less views than the previous one. Um, and it finally started to kind of turn around a little bit. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not jumping for joy because I still know my lot on this website, but I am glad with how the other one did. I remember I had this one crazy person show up on my screen talking about, you always seem to complain about uh, the site, so why do you even post? It's like, well, I don't complain about my stuff. I complain about the reception to them, which is usually a lack of views. So if that want is met, then you won't see me complain. I still that goes back to that thing of like on the internet, people always take like normal stuff and try to demonize it. Like it's so horrible that you want views on a website where people post videos to get views. They always find a way to just make any normal thing you want that everybody else wants villainous. Hope you had a good thanks. It wasn't as bad as the previous one where I had to take out 9 bags of trash by myself. So I guess I'll say it's slightly improved, but it still wasn't. Just I don't like this holiday. Just that's all it is. I've never been a fan of it. Every year it's the same thing. People show up at your house. If you go in front of them, they act like they care so much about you, even though they never call you, never ask you how you're doing. They eat all your stuff, leave a big mess, and then you have to clean up after them. And then the cycle repeats itself the next year. It's just imagine if Halloween was like that, where instead of kids coming to trick or treat to get free candy, which is advertised as part of the tradition of the holiday, you have a bunch of like grown adults show up to your house, like, can I get some Snickers? They all just sit there eating a bunch of candy in a little jar together. Um, Dio, you spoke negatively of Young Justice season 4, even though you were mostly you pretty much only spoke negatively of the animation, which whatever. But I have to admit, it as someone who hasn't been a fan of that show since the first season, I'm kind of liking what they're doing. We've had 8 episodes so far, and the formula seems to be 4 episodes are devoted to developing two, maybe three characters, right? And you might get a little bit of other stuff going on that kind of all ties it together, but there's like an overarching, like the main plot is this one thing that gets entirely focused on with these few characters. I'm really liking that premise. So the first four were about Miss Martian and Superboy, right? When they were on Krypton, not Krypton, on Mars rather. I only saw the first two, and then the four after that were about Artemis and Cheshire. Well, we only have we're not even halfway through the season yet, so it's whatever. I'm just saying that as someone who hasn't been a fan of this show since season one, I've been liking what they've been doing with this season so far. And if it keeps going like this, it'll be on track to be the first season of this show I've liked in 10 years. Or is it 8 years? When did season one ended in like what 2013? Yeah, no, 2012. Because I remember I was in eighth grade when they started. I remember season two started 1 week after season one because season one had all these weird delays. So I'm liking what they're doing so far. And then apparently the next arc is going to be about Satana, a character who that show has been treating like trash ever since season one ended. Like they have her join in season one, like all the way toward the end after doing some stuff with her for a few episodes. Then they reveal she's joined the Justice League. And then she has no episodes about she has like cameos throughout season two and three. So I'm excited at the prospect of her finally getting focus again. When they were on Mars, they didn't have to animate their mouths moving at all. Yeah, with the telepathy. Dude, mouth movement's not even that hard. It's really simple. You just like sometimes for the more expressive mouth movements, you take the lower part of the face and move it down a little bit. Like if someone is stretching their mouth out like that. That's what I think is funny. It's like they're so lazy they can't even animate the mouth. But yeah, I really hope they stay doing what they're doing. The only worry I have right now is that they said season four would be about the season one group. And if we're just getting 4 episode arcs that are about like one or two characters, I don't really see how that's about the whole group. Like, how to explain it? One of the things I really liked about season one was how the group interacted with each other. Um, and if we're not going to see them, like, we're going to see them all get episodes focusing on them, but not together, that's going to really upset me or disappoint me. It won't make me say the whole season sucks or anything, but it'll like that because that's one of the problems I had with season two and three. It's like you want me to believe these characters who we didn't see together at all in this 5 year time gap became so close, and we still don't get to see it. So that's what I'm worried about right now. Again, we're not even halfway through it. They have plenty of time to, you know, impress me, but we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic. I told you that's like my go-to phrase for every season of this show after two. It's like, oh, they for two they introduced a bunch of new characters, a time skip, and barely used Kid Flash, and all the rest of this different stuff. But maybe for season three, if they have a time skip, it won't be used as an excuse to not develop characters and put them in new status quo changing situations. Time skip, and then the exact same thing again. Just more and more. I'm like, who? Why can't they just focus on the ones they already have? Like, I don't understand. Man, I miss like every time I watch two and three, I'm just like, I'm just gonna go watch season one again. Now that when the show was actually good, it's like they had six main characters and then all these other Justice League members, some other sidekicks, but that core group of six got so much development in 20 some episodes, and it's so sad that for whatever reason they can't just continue with that group. Like I don't understand, but whatever. I just hope that season four continues the way it's been going. That would be so funny if, like, let's say it's 10 years later, and the only season, like, let's say this is the last season, which I don't think it will be, but let's pretend it's the last one. It'll be so funny if, like, every time I watch them, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna watch season one, and then I'm gonna go watch season four. I still think two is better than three. Three is the just bottom of the barrel. And again, two and three both have some all right episodes, but they're just for the most part they have these like really confusing stories with loads of characters. Um, a real indecisiveness when it comes to who they want to focus on. Like I still hate how in season 2 we get this subplot, right, where it reveals that Red Arrow's been looking for Speedy for 5 years, and then he finds him, and Speedy is like very interesting because he's like, "Hey, I'm not going to get mad at the clone who looked for me and brought me back for my predicament. I'm going to get mad at Green Arrow." And then for the rest of the season, we see nothing else about this new dynamic. And it's not because they couldn't have written something else. They just have so many different plots that they're jumping back and forth between that there's almost nothing they can do to actually focus on, this specific character and his plight. Too many characters. It really hurts to look at the first season of that show and just recoil as to where I think the only other show that's like that for me is probably Core, but that's not even because that show had too many characters. It was just when you have a series that doesn't have a clear, methodical, plotted out vision of where it wants to go, a lot of times it can get really confusing and not give certain stuff enough time to be developed. So that was the case with Korra, where they knew they were going to have 12 episodes, and then they got renewed for another 3 seasons, and then they're like, well, for one show we had an overarching main antagonist. For this one, let's just have a bunch of different villains that aren't given enough time to actually be developed because they're in 12 or 14 episode seasons. That show was another example of just. I think if they just stuck with either, like if they got rid of Amon after season 1 and then had whoever they wanted to after season 2 as the main antagonist from then on, they could have done a lot better. But it just, I could do a whole 2 or 3 hour video talking about the issues I have with that show. Like the explanation of the first Avatar. I'm like, I didn't need to see that. That show completely nerfed the Avatar state. It's like you took this powerful form that worked in the first show because it was only used when Aang was under complete stress or distress. And it had like a lot of emotional weight to it. It was something that was urgent, that always signified how massive a threat was, and made it to where Korra can use it on command. So now you have to make it, not actually be as effective as it used to be. Otherwise, there are no stakes. Tell you, that show is just so goofy to me. I think the only Avatar stuff I like after the show is, as far as like stories, probably the comics. Other than that, I'd say I'd rather not. I wish they would just do something with that stuff, like animate some of it, or maybe because the voice actors clearly would come back to do it. Like they all speak about their love for the show. I would love if we got either adaptations of the comics that they've made since 2012 or another season of the show. I'd much prefer that over what we've had since. I haven't read the comics. I like them because they do give more development and focus to the original group. Although I don't really like how some of the stuff, like they separate Toph a little too much from the rest of the team for my taste. And there's some pretty, like I still think the story of what happened to Zuko's mother is very interesting. Like I couldn't have seen that coming, and it really sucks that they opted to not have that story told in the movie. And as this one person pointed out in the comic, that most people aren't going to read, because I think it's a pretty good story. I'd like a Zuko spinoff. I don't know, because I want to see more of his interactions with Aang. So if you have a spinoff focused on him, are you saying that we're only going to see Aang a little bit or not at all? Personally, I prefer if they did a sequel show that's set like 10 years later, right? With them kind of just as young adults. And then you could probably, if you wanted to do something about Zuko, probably have it set in between when Aang dies and then when Korra starts up. So when she, like when the first season of that show takes place, like that seven, was that 17-year gap? And because if they did a show like that, we could see more of Sokka. He was the only one of the major, I guess if you want to count, or like out of those young characters from the first show, he was the only one that they kill off, just cause. Well, then why not just ask for another season of The Last Airbender? I mean, if you're gonna have Aang be there as well, that could work as a show. You could have half of an episode be about Aang doing something, the other half be about Zuko doing something, right? And then like keep most of that group that was with him around him. You could have a whole season where he's just in the Fire Nation trying to like weed out those people that still, want to have war and haven't realized that Ozai's era is over. That would have been great. Yeah, what else am I gonna say? Again, the problem with that 70-year gap between the first show and Korra is that there's a whole bunch of stuff we don't really know about. Like it's described to us, maybe we get like a little picture, but we don't really see it or get that much development of it. So doing a movie or another season of a show could really help with expanding on some of that stuff. I would like to see eventually something that expands on. Like I know we got the book on Kyoshi, but I would like to see more stuff about the past avatars because you really don't get that much about them between both shows. You get like I'd say Roku's the one that's the most developed. That's not Aang out of that original series, but even then, most of his development is in one episode. And that's why I said there's big portions of that universe's history that we really don't know that much about. Like between the period where Aang goes into that iceberg and then when he comes out, we don't know. Again, we know about the Fire Nation, changing leadership, whatever, but we really still don't know what specific, like how are they different from each other. Um, it's just stuff like that is the issue. I think the last Airbender ended on a good note, so there's no need for another season. Sir, generally when people are fans of something, usually they'll want more of it. So we weren't saying that we need another season. We were saying that we wouldn't have a problem with seeing another one or a continuation of that story. And evidently other people wouldn't either, which is why the comics that continue the story of that show happen to sell very well. Jesus Christ. Guys really kill me with some of this stuff. Just contrarian to be contrarian. I could easily think of a solid 5 or 6 different cliffhangers that The Last Airbender had. That you could argue we could just interpret for ourselves. You could say uh, they weren't important enough to be continued, or stuff to that effect. But even though that's been proven to not be the case, which is why the comics exist, we have the fact that Zuko becomes the Fire Lord. right? And the same, we're supposed to believe that the same group of people who have been at war with the rest of the world for years are just going to now magically be okay with no longer being at war with the rest of the world. Just complete regime change, snap of the fingers like that. A fourth season could have expanded on what that was like, what happened while this new, very young Fire Lord took over. What were these dynamics? We also had the fact that within the show, not counting the comics, they never addressed what happened to Zuko's mother. It's literally answered or asked of Ozai, and his response, if he even had one, is off screen. So, you can say the show's main conflict resolved, but there's still plenty of things that we didn't see, that were not explained. I mean, just I don't really understand this like weird antagonism that like it's bizarre to me. Because no one said we need to know what happened. It's like, no, I would like to see this. You see what happens, Dio, when two people have a good dialogue, somebody comes along and ruins it every time. That's one of the favorite hobbies of people on the internet. They always find a way to just botch something. Yeah, like nobody said we needed it. We were just explaining what things we would like to see be expanded on or addressed. Just like in the season finale, we see that Azula's friends joined the Kyoshi Warriors after they were in prison with them. We don't know what caused them to go from being enemies of that group to now wanting to be their friends and want to be, part of their. Well, I should say Ty Lee joined. Mine just was like whatever. But that's still something that easily could be explained in a comic, one episode. It's not some huge plot thread, but it is still something that happens off screen that they could develop if they would like. Jesus Christ. They always do. They love coming around and just like two people are just talking about something. This doesn't need to. I was like, okay, can you relax? I don't know. It seems like anytime somebody wants a continuation of something, you have people who just shout it down and are like very upset for whatever reason. Like they feel the need to tell you that there is no need for this. It's like, well, these are all fictitious stories, so you could say there's no need for any of it. But if people like something, they usually want a continuation. Like hell, the first Spider-Man movie, there's really no need for a sequel to that. You have nothing there that really hints at a second one. It's him with his secret identity that nobody knows about besides himself and someone that died, and he's keeping the secret of his best friend's dad slash his arch enemy away from him to protect him and his memory of his father. Um, there's nothing about Doc Ock. There's nothing about any other antagonist that shows up after that. So there's a lot of stories where you can argue from the standpoint of that specific story, there's nothing there for a continuation. But if people like it, they'll still ask for more. Yeah, he is. He's the. That's why I said he's the only one out of the original group. Like the major, younger characters from that show that is deceased, which I think was really stupid because he's not. He's around the same age as Zuko. I don't know why they. Whatever. I thought it was dumb. We get a few flashbacks of him during season one. We get some more information about him stopping Cora from getting kidnapped when she was a little girl. He's part of some effort to stop that. And other than that, we really don't know that much about what happened to him after the last Airbender ended. Again, outside of stuff that's been revealed to us in the comics, but even then, there's like a really big gap between stuff that happened when he was like a younger, maybe a year or two after the show ended, and then all this other information from when he was close to the end of his life. Like there's decades of stuff that's just missing. Like we just have to assume something happened. Sokka had big growing arcs. Well, that's why I was surprised that they chose to just have him as the only like you have to have Aang be deceased so that the next Avatar can be the protagonist, but they just chose to have him be the only one that's deceased. And remember, I told you those lion bastards when the show was announced were like, Katara is the only character from the previous series that is still alive, and then you find out that Zuko and Toph are alive too, like as the show goes on. It's hard living in a world with benders and feeling like you're powerless. And now the only ones that are alive from the original show are benders. Go figure. I guess they have the inflated lifespan. Well, again, Dio, we don't know. We don't know if he got married. We don't know if he had kids because like, all of our information about him is stuff from the original show, the comics, which are set a year or two after the original show, and then a couple of flashbacks in Korra that are mostly in the first season that just show him as being part of some council. Like there's nothing. That's why I said there's this huge gap of missing information that a movie, a couple of issues of a comic could easily rectify. But I guess I shouldn't say that because according to Brandon, there's no need. That's literally a criticism you could make of every ongoing story ever made. Like hell, let's go to Dragon Ball since that's like another popular one we discuss on here. Look at the ending of the Cell Saga. Does anything hint to Boo or to Goku needing to be resurrected or to Vegeta needing to fight again? Nope. Still got made anyway. Yeah, Korra handled it bad. Did they show Jet's gang? Oh no, we never see them again after the. I think they might be in the comics for like a panel or two, but we never see them again after the original. No, but the Boo arc wasn't necessary. Right, but just because something's not necessary, and again, if you want to go down this road, we can literally trace this all back to the start of the series. After they get the Dragon Balls, after was it 13 episodes, you can just say, all right, that's it. Nothing else is necessary. Like Goku is not Naruto. He doesn't have a long spanning goal that really is defined in a specific term. Like he just wants to get stronger. So you could say that he achieved his dream of getting stronger by saving the world with his great ape form and all the rest of that. No Boo arc, no fusion. Right, but I'm saying that you can make the criticism of a story ending on a high note and not needing a continuation with literally any story ever made. When I go back and reread Amazing Fantasy 15 and see Spider-Man become, his secret identity and lose his uncle, I don't need to read Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 441, the whole first volume. I could just say, all right, well, here's this character who learned that with great power comes, everybody knows the quotes. We don't need any continuation. Like you could just say that ended on a high note where now he's learned his lesson. He's going to go out and save the world and be such a great hero. We don't need any continuation. Like you can do this with everything. Hell, look at Star Wars. You have 4, 5, and 6 tell the story of Luke, and then we still end up getting, it ends on a high note. All the villains are defeated. Happy days, whatever. And then we still end up getting a sequel trilogy 30 years later, and before that, a bunch of continuation comics that reveal what happened after that anyway. Let's see, where is this? No, but the Boo arc was necessary. Like, really, are there any plot threads that are relevant? Which is why I said you can say the same thing of previous stuff because even though Cell is connected to the Red Ribbon Army from the original Dragon Ball, there was no hinting of him showing up at all prior to the Cell saga starting. Like, we never saw Jiro before the Cell arc. He's just this character that Toriyama created and then gave this like organic backstory to have a problem with Goku. But again, you could say that Z should have ended with Frieza. You know, Goku defeats the person that destroyed his race, saves the universe, whatever. Like there's a whole bunch of different periods in that show where there's like a new plot element that's introduced after some big major element was established. And you could say it that way, that it's just something that ends on a high note that does need a continuation because there's nothing lingering in that specific part of the story, but it still gets one nonetheless. That was the worst point ever made on this channel about any narrative. Like something ends on a high note, there's no point in the continuation. Then we got all these other examples of stories ending on a high note and getting all these continuations. But when I want one more damn season explaining several different things that were not explained in The Last Airbender, it's too much. I think that's crazy. Like, there's a whole bunch of plot threads from The Last Airbender that don't get explained in the show, and you're like, oh, and then on a high note because they resolved the main conflict. It's like, yeah, but if they wanted to do a fourth season, they easily could. Again, let's recap. What happened to Zuko's mother, right? What is the Fire Nation going to be like now without their tyrannical leader? Are they all going to have this change of heart? Or are you going to have defectors? What is Aang going to do to rebuild the air temples and establish more airbenders? And also what's he going to do now as a fully mastered avatar? Because he only becomes that during the third season. So there's plenty of stuff if they wanted a fourth one, which by the way, they actually did. And what ended up happening was the douchebags at Nickelodeon told them you only are going to have a third season. So they had to combine their third and fourth season ideas into one. And then after the show ended, they ordered 12 more episodes, which is how we got stuck with Korra in the first place. And at one point, they were offered a fourth season of The Last Airbender, but decided to pursue that film that came out in 2010, which is considered one of the worst movies ever made. So, I'm not the only one who's thought about a continuation. They were thinking about doing that pretty much before the show even ended. I'm tired of driving over plot holes. I'm tired of having these weird stories that don't explain things, and then like people defend it and go, "Well, they solved this one part of it, so you got to give them credit for that." So get out of here. Oh, Akatsuki Merchant. Brandon told me. What did he write? So the way this works is that me and Dio were in here talking about how we both like The Last Airbender, stuff they could have done with the fourth season that admittedly is kind of being done by the comics, but stuff we would have liked to have seen if the show had one more season. And he wrote, I think The Last Airbender ended on a good note, which no one said it didn't. So there's no need for another season, which I think is complete bogus. Because one, you could say if something, there are plenty of stories that ended on a good note and still got continuations. And I gave some examples earlier. But also, there are several parts of The Last Airbender in its overarching plot that by the end of the show are not explained, which is why I brought up Zuko's mother. I brought up, what the Fire Nation will be like now that they've lost their leader who's been there for the entire duration of the show. what Aang will do as a fully mastered airbender, as a fully mastered avatar, because he only becomes that during the third season, the last couple of episodes. Um, I thought there was plenty of stuff that they could work with if they want to do another season. Also, if Toph will ever reunite with her parents, which we did end up seeing in the comics. So there, like I said, it's really sad to me that we're not sitting here saying there must be another season, but we're just saying, hey, look, they want to do a fourth one. Here are these different things they could work with. There's no need for, I'm like, well, you could say that about any story that has some at one point definitive ending. You could say the first Transformers movie has a definitive ending. We still got like 4 more of those things. All the Decepticons are pretty much defeated. You know, the ones that got away aren't they're not going to be a threat because it's all the Autobots versus 2 of them. It's nothing. You can make the same rationale for any story. You could say the same thing about Beast Wars. At the end of the show, the Maximals beat the villains, which are the Predacons. Take the main one back to Cybertron to put him in jail. Like you could say that's as definitive of an ending as you could get, and we still ended up with Beast Machines. That's why I brought up the Dragon Ball example. I said if you look at the ending of Frieza, not even just Cell, but just the ending of the Frieza saga, there's nothing there that alludes to more story needing to be told. Like at least with the Saiyan saga, there's the cliffhanger of how are you going to resurrect all your friends that died? So they go to to Namek and then they fight Frieza, who turns out to be the one that killed all the Saiyans, and Goku defeats him and thereby avenges all of his people, becomes a savior of the universe from this galactic tyrant. There's nothing there for a continuation. But of course, with the Cell saga, at the very least, they organically make it connected to the Red Ribbon saga, Red Ribbon Army saga, whatever, from the original series. Even though Jiro didn't actually appear in Dragon Ball, he's a character that was made for the Cell saga to give it, more connective tissue between, that arc and this one. But at the end of the Cell saga, you have the main villain defeated. Pretty much everyone's alive other than, 16 and Goku, the latter of whom sacrificed himself. And you can reasonably assume that Gohan will take his father's place as the new protector of Earth and be assisted by his friends as Goku was during his lifetime. And there's nothing there that hints at Buu or fusions or the Supreme Kai or Beerus or any of this other stuff that comes after it. So I just thought it was a really weird point to make. And that's why I also brought up the Star Wars example. For 30 years, the only continuation we had after episode 6 was comics and novels, which a lot of which I thought were really good. But again, you could say episode 6 and on a high note with the main villain being defeated, Luke having restored order to the galaxy, the Jedi Knight. And we still end up getting all these different comics and books that are continuations of it. And then they get erased for a sequel trilogy that's, and I don't like it, but it's still a continuation of that story. So it seemed really strange to me, like a very bizarre point to make. Just because something on a high note, there's no need for more of it. Like you can make that argument about any series that has a definitive ending ever. Let me see. Did he write anything else? No, he didn't. Okay, I think they already explained what happened to Zuko's mom. No, James, I'm talking about the show. When the show ended, there was no explanation. Those comics only came around after they knew they weren't getting a 4th season. That's why there's an 8-year gap between when the show ended in 2008 and when The Promise, the first trilogy of graphic novels, came out in 2012. So I'm saying to you that if they wanted to do a 4th season back in 2008, 2009, whichever of those 2 years, they would have started production. And none of these comics that explain stuff took place or were created, which they only came about because they knew they weren't getting the 4th season. They could have used that as a plot element to work with. So that's my point, that the stuff that explains it, these comics, did not exist when they knew for a fact they weren't getting a 4th season initially. That was only afterward. People will say anything to defend their favorite media. In the comics, they explain what happened to Azula after she was defeated by Zuko. Yeah, I thought it was really good. Her trying to make Zuko a Fire Lord like she would want to be, by with that manipulation. It fits entirely with her character. Defeated by Zuko and Katara, no Suki or Ty Lee and Korra. Same thing with Mai. Like we see her break up with Zuko and we never know if they get back together. That's why I said there's plenty of stuff they could work with in between that 70-year gap. They just choose not to. Like guys, it's 70 years. They could do a whole 1,000 issue The Last Airbender anthology comic, right? That just like has different characters and each, for like 2 or 3 issues, just explaining what happened to them, how their life was progressing. Because again, you have 70 years of material to work with. But I still would have loved to see what happened to Azula after that fight in the show. Well, Akatsuki Merchant, what has been said is that apparently she was going to get some redemption arc during season 4, which is totally different from what they've done with her in the comics. Look, I love Grey DeLisle. She's one of the best voice actors of all time. So I would be completely fine with them doing a 4th season just to have her do Azula again. It just sucks that you have someone telling you there's no need for another season, but then we have all these unresolved plot threads that, again, comics have later explained some of them, but when the show ended, they were not explained anywhere. So they could have worked with this stuff if they wanted to. Which is why The Last Airbender was originally going to be 80 episodes before Nickelodeon and all their, divine brilliance said, hey guys, 3rd season's your last one. So you better squeeze your 40 episodes into 20. And after the show ended and got these big ratings, they were like, oh my God, let's get 12 more episodes. Like, oh, we just ended the show. I swear you could say that about any story, period, man. Like that was hilarious. There's no need for another season. It's like, yeah, there's no need for a lot of sequels that still end up getting made. Like, give me a break. That's why I gave the example of the first Spider-Man, because that was back before they even did like all these sequels and little hooks and the rest of that stuff. It's like you have him beat the main villain, who's now deceased. No one knows his secret identity. There's nothing about Doc Ock, who's the villain for the second one. So you can easily look at the first movie and say, yeah, this is just a little 2-hour story about this person that turns into a superhero to save his city from this crazy flying person, and that'd be it. Look at the first Iron Man. You have the post-credit scene, but outside of that, you can just say, okay, well, this is a superhero who was very selfish, self-centered, but through his experience over the course of the film has become more serving of the public with his technology. And now, as someone who's revealed himself to be Iron Man, could just go around saving people with this as his public identity. There's nothing in there about Whiplash or the Avengers, other than that post-credit scene, which still you can say it doesn't have anything to do with the main story, which has been told from the first film, and that it's just a little fun, the adventure continues type of teaser. Imagine if they did a 70-year time skip in DBZ, Vegeta died, but they don't show you. Well, they already did something stupid like that with him in Z anyway. It's like, at the end of the Cell Saga, he's like, I will never fight again. And then you see him in the Buu Saga training, and he now lives with Bulma, who he previously barely was even around during the whole period up to this. Like it's basically made to where they had this one night stand, and then she got pregnant, and then that was it. Like they don't explain how he went from being someone that barely paid any attention to her to now being her husband that lives in her home and loves her and all the rest of this stuff. So that's why I said Toriyama, when he was the first one to do the Young Justice model of, I don't feel like devoting time to actually explaining this or revealing what happened, so I'm just going to do a time skip. And again, it's like all they have, if they like, the thing that pisses me off the most about the Buu Saga with the time skips is that you don't have to show us everything that happened. Like we didn't need to have a whole 30 chapter arc, right, in between Cell and Boo explaining and showing this stuff. But during the Boo saga, they could have given flashbacks. They could have given examples. Like you have Vegeta say, I was so sick of her until, there was this one time I was training and she was very nice. And that's all they have to do. Like you can easily explain something that's been skipped over with a flashback. But again, laziness. Look at Krillin and 18. Barely talk to each other during the Cell Saga. 7-year time skip, off-screen development later. Now they have a kid and they live together. That's why I say that show is such a joke, man. After the Cell Saga, it takes a steep nosedive. Conflict resolution is pretty low bar for ending a story, considering some stories continues on with other plot lines that haven't been explained. Well, that's why I said The Last Airbender has plenty of stories that could, like, if I just took all the little different plot lines that were not explained, but were either hinted at or resolved, quietly in the background, and said, okay, I'm gonna do a season where we have flashbacks, we have people like showing how, like, what happened during all this stuff. You get another 20 episodes out of that show like that. Time skips only work when each character has received some big conflict in their own plot lines. I hate when it's used as a way for writers to get out of explaining things in the story. Well, that's why I said Dragon Ball used to not be that way. Like, if you look at the time skip in the Saiyan saga, in the Free Saga doesn't have it just starts immediately after. But if you look at the time skips in that damn show up until the Buu saga, the only reason they even existed was so you could believe in your head, okay, this character's been training for 3 years. They must be stronger. Surely they have a chance against whoever the new antagonist is. That's all they were there for, just for people to train for an excessive amount of time to where you would believe, yeah, this person's stronger. Like, for example, the Saiyan saga has a year time skip where Gohan is training with Piccolo and they become closer. You actually get to see that. They actually show the two of them training together. And Piccolo being like very distant and then gradually becoming nicer to Gohan. They don't just go, well, we're going to train for a year and then next panel, oh my God, Piccolo's the most amazing mentor ever. Look at the original Dragon Ball. The only, like, in all those time skips of Goku training, it's just him getting stronger. That's it. He does, like, other than that, when he gets the one between the original and Z, the only difference is now he has a kid with someone who he already was attracted to before the time skip happened. Which I have issues with that romance, but whatever. It still is mainly used to just show that characters have gotten stronger. It's not used to go, oh, well, now this person who used to act this way is now this way. It only starts doing that during the Buu saga. I will make a whole video just about time skips in Dragon Ball and how the Buu saga is where it just went off the rails and Toriyama got lazy and was like, well, I don't feel like developing this character anymore, so I'm just going to say, time skip. And people will like it anyway because they eat up whatever I write. No need to explain. Time skip. Why are things different now? No need to explain. They just are because I want them to be. All these time skips just create confusion for the story. Again, in Dragon Ball, up until the Buu saga, it's not used as an excuse to change the characters. Everyone just trains. They just use it to explain that someone is stronger, more powerful, and look at how they are because look at how long they've been training. That's the only thing they're used for up until the Buu saga. Hell, even in Naruto, it's like, you could say, okay, well, a lot of the characters become they go from being Chunins to from being Genin to Chunins, and then in Neji's case, a Jonin. But even then, you could still say it's mostly just there so you can believe the characters are stronger. The only character they really kind of pissed me off with the time skip stuff is Gaara, because you had this monster, right, who now is the leader of his village, and we don't even get to see like what he did. That annoyed me because that's a very interesting character that if Kishimoto wasn't so obsessed with sucking off Sasuke, we could have seen more of. But that's another tirade. So Naruto has so many good characters, and they all get thrown in the trash into the wayside for this black-haired, stupid, whatever. I don't even want to get into him. But I'm just saying that that's another example of a time skip where it's mostly just used for training. You don't have a time skip where after 2 years, oh look, Naruto went from completely ignoring who's a good example, Hinata, to now having a kid and being married to her. You don't have that. There was no need for another season. Get out of here. I'm not even surprised you wrote that. You're the same person that apparently likes the DVD videos but can't be bothered to leave a comment on any of them. So I'm not too shocked. And also said he wanted me to retire or that he was waiting for me to retire. That's all part of the Brandon baggage. I am not surprised at all. Where did James go? Is he still here, or did he leave? Did he get tired of these ridiculous things being said by the last person left a comment? Yeah, I think he left. I don't blame him. He dipped. He had his little cameo. He's probably filming his No Way Home scene right now. So that'll be the rationale for why he disappeared. That's the movie that everybody's in. Telling you, if Maguire and Garfield aren't in that damn thing, it's going to be the most hilarious internet freak out ever. And like I said, I'm not even a Sony fan or a John Watts fan or a Tom Holland fan or any of those people other than Molina, because I think he's amazing. Like I've seen him and stuff outside of Spider-Man 2. But I'll defend them. I'll say, hey, look, they told you guys those two were not going to be in that movie, and you kept refusing to believe them. So when they end up not being in the movie, you know, uh, you don't have anybody to blame but yourself. I just think that's hilarious. It's like we're gonna get mad at the people who told us something was not going to happen as we refuse to believe them. There actually are some films that parody that weird, that like contradiction. It's like, let me not believe the person who's telling me what's going to happen or not going to happen, but I will believe the person who is online saying that this thing will happen, even though they're not officially involved with the movie. They have no role in making this damn thing at all. They're just posting stuff on the internet to get attention. But let me believe them over the people actually involved with this. I find that hilarious. Again, it's going to be a really funny month if they're not in that film. It'll be hilarious. Like I said, I'm not. You always have to explain that the whole thing because people like to accuse me of stuff. I'm not against them appearing at all. I just if I was going to see McGuire's version of the character again, I'd rather just have a Spider-Man 4 instead of whatever this is. It's like let's give him another entry where he's the lead character instead of playing at best second or third fiddle to another iteration of the character that I'm not really that big a fan of to begin with. Because at first I thought it was just going to be, and this is what we were led to believe back in December. It would be, Melina and Fox, who plays Electro, as the two antagonists against Holland as Spider-Man. I was completely fine with that because I said, you know what, this is the first movie out of any of these that has like two repeat villains. They both get a chance to do more with their portrayals. I'm not a fan of Fox's Electro, but whatever. I was still fine with, I'm not against anyone coming back at because I feel like if I try to say this person shouldn't be allowed to return, it'll also, it'll legitimize people saying about who I want to come back. So whatever. Um, but ever since last year, you've had people who've convinced themselves the other two actors for Peter will return, and if they don't show up, you're going to have them get pissed off at a film that everyone involved with it officially gave them no reason to believe they would even appear anyway. This movie has been the ultimate campaign of misinformation. Jennifer Gardner is 20 years older. Okay. I don't know what she has to do with what I'm talking about, but that's all right. If you want to mention her being 20 years older, we all age. That would be a very interesting video about just like actresses and how they have this like very short lifespan when it comes to them being a hot commodity. Like we've seen multiple actresses that admit like by the time they're 40, they can barely get any work, which I think is really sad. Because it is sexist to have someone because of their gender be seen as not being as capable or as appealing as a man, because there are plenty of older men like Harrison Ford, for example, that have like 40, 50, 60 years careers. I'm talking about Electro, not Electro. Besides, nobody here even likes Daredevil anyway. What? Not even Netflix Daredevil? You know what I'm talking about? Like he's just never been one of Marvel's more popular properties. That's what I'm getting at. Like I can think of at least 5 or 6 different things they have going for them that are more like than Daredevil. Harrison Ford is coming back to play Indiana Jones. Yeah, but I'm saying that there's a big correlation with actresses where after they get to a certain age, the majority of them see a very steep decline in the amount of work they get. No deal. I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just saying that compared to Spider-Man, which it's not even a comparison. X-Men, Fantastic Four, Avengers, which used to just be the ghetto Justice League up until the movies came out. Um, Heck, even Iron Man. Like Iron Man had multiple TV shows. A movie trilogy. Like it's really not even. I wouldn't put him in their top 5 properties. I'll put it that way. You could argue that Wolverine's more popular than him. Because Hugh Jackman has the longest record ever of playing a comic book character in film. In the hospital again, he got injured on set for the 5th time. Well, isn't that the same thing with Shuri from Black Panther, where was it Letitia Wright is sitting up in the hospital after some injury she had during the movie? And then apparently there's going to be an issue where since she's not vaccinated, it's not going to it's going to have some kind of issue with the filming laws in Georgia. Somebody said that movie series is cursed. I mean, what it is that she probably is not used to playing a physically demanding role, and if they're going to have her as new Black Panther jumping around and all the rest of that, she's probably going to get hurt. That's the biggest problem with doing all these stunts. They can really hurt people. And we have had people get killed while filming stuff too. So, but that's one of the reasons I prefer cartoons and comics, because no one ever dies doing those. Like you never hear like, oh man, this person was drawn and he broke his arm and it cut off into a million pieces. But you hear about car crashes on set, actors falling from these heights and breaking different stuff. You don't see that when people are doing a cartoon or they're doing a comic or just something with their voice is what I'm getting at. It got to the point where I forgot Hugh Jackman's name and referred to him as Wolverine. Yeah, he's really synonymous with the character. Like I know that the MCU is going to try to do X-Men again, right? But I don't think whoever they get is going to be as renowned for playing them as Jackman is as Wolverine. I think they're going to probably, if they don't end up trying to get him again and just de-age him, they'll probably get somebody else that gets compared unfavorably. It'll basically be like a Tom Holland 2.0 where it's like, This is the fake Wolverine. The real one was in the, the other the Fox X-Men movies. No, I think the MCU was better off staying away from X-Men because that that and Spider-Man had these established movie series to where to try and do it yourself, you're gonna have people who make unfair comparisons between, like, you didn't have an Iron Man movie before the MCU, you know. That's why I always said, like, the basically the MCU is built off of characters that nobody cared about. Not saying they were bad, but it's just that were not considered like hot topics. That's why, when it started, they weren't able to use Spider-Man or X-Men or Fantastic Four because people love those properties independently from Marvel, and they were viewed as being able to stand on their own, devoid of the universe that they originated from. So I think they'll probably end up either trying to get Jackman back and doing the de-aging stuff and like different, like, probably I always think of Revenge of the Sith with Ian McDermott, where they have like somebody else's body, but it's his head on top of when they're doing the lightsaber clashes because of his age. I think they'll do the same thing with Jackman, where they'll have like somebody else that's kind of like similar in stature to him as Wolverine when he's fighting, but then it's like Jackman's head on top of it, and then he's acting, stuff like that. Because I think his performance as Wolverine is one of my top 10 favorite comic book performances. Like him as Wolverine, Maguire as Spider-Man, J.K. Simmons as Jameson, you know, just perfect. And I always regret that we don't get more of them as that character. Like, I really hope the MCU does get around to using Scorpion, because I would love to see Simmons like playing as Jameson with the Scorpion story of like he gets this person to undergo this certain this procedure to go and be able to be a match for Spider-Man. Then when he's stuck in the suit, he hates Jameson, and Jameson, who hates Spider-Man, also feels responsible for having directly created this villain. I would love to see it. That would be amazing. It's still funny. It's like we got Matt Gargan in Homecoming and still no Scorpion. No, all the Daily Bugle people have some arch nemesis villain out of Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. Like Robbie has what was it, Tombstone, and then Betty has Hobgoblin because that was her husband who was brainwashed. Although originally it was just revealed that he was Hobgoblin, and they retconned it later to where he was brainwashed. So there's plenty of stuff they could do if they actually have the Daily Bugle and future MCU Spider-Man stuff, which there's a big part of me thinks they probably won't, because I don't know how, like, what the deal is with this character. Like, is he going to work for the website? Because that was one of the appeals I liked of the original trilogy, that he would come in and actually interact with them and stuff. So I think they botched it, but whatever, we'll see. Holland already is going to do probably like 8 of these, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, Marvel is just such a weird group of people. What else was I gonna say? I think I'm pretty much, I want to say, comicked out. And then the other thing is with the MCU, I really hope if they do X-Men, they actually give Magneto a character arc. Like, you have him as the villain for maybe like one, two, at most 3 movies. Then you start to see the redemption stuff being planted with, because we've talked about this before, how one of the reasons he's one of the greatest villains ever made is because he's sympathetic. He has an interesting backstory, an interesting dynamic with Xavier. He's not just this mustache twirling, screwed up evil person. So that's why when he gets redeemed eventually, it's completely believable that he would, just gradually come to view the X-Men as being the group that he could work with in wanting to better the world for mutants, because that is at the heart of his struggle, wanting the world to be a better place for mutants. It's because Disney is trying to milk much money as they can off of the Avengers Spider-Man. I would have no issue with Sony getting back the rights. I really wouldn't. I'd be all for that. Like, just give me Spider-Verse 2. You know, you can do a little another Venom movie, whatever. But I would have no issue with Spider-Man because they like I don't really see what they're doing that's interesting at all. Like, they're probably not going to do the dynamic between him and Johnny Storm. So, you know, for Fantastic Four, which is a good friendship that he has. They've already decided to barely do anything with him in Daredevil, do nothing at all. And then, like, apparently there's like a picture of Charlie Cox, you know, in the No Way Home, which people think is whatever. So they're not doing anything with that either. Um, and then apparently all of his classic villains, like the major ones, are just going to be revealed to not actually exist in the MCU anyway. So I don't really see much of a point or a future to this character. He's got some best friend that is only interesting because he shares the name with Hobgoblin. We don't know if he's actually going to turn into that. He's got a love interest that I find to be kind of boring, you know, just whatever. I don't really have like I have if Sony gets the rights back, I won't have any problem with it. I really want Sony to get the property of yeah. I hope they keep it. I hope the contract runs out, and I hope that you know we can just go and do more stuff with the character by himself. I don't really see much of an appeal to just having him in this universe with all these other characters who he barely interacts with in the first place. 'Cause, you know, if they did use Holland for another trilogy, right, from Sony, they can't mention Iron Man. He would be completely devoid of him. That would be so funny if they actually like. You know, what'd be the most hilarious thing ever if they kill off. And I know they won't do this because they would never. You know, this is their golden boy. But if they kill off Holland's version of the character and then have Maguire as the MCU Spider-Man, because you know what that would mean, right? That would make the original trilogy the first three MCU movies. That would be hilarious. I have the biggest smile I ever raised seeing that. They're trying to get him to friend up with Doctor Strange in this new No Way Home, which is going to make Strange look deliberately weak for the sake of plot. Yeah, that's my point. That having all these other heroes around, like, I'm not the biggest fan of the TASM movies, specifically the second one. I think the first one's all right, but again, when he was just a isolated hero, right? With as far as you're aware, no other superheroes in his universe. It was much more realistic to believe, yeah, he's in danger. It's nobody can help him besides himself. So when you have like all these other heroes, you're always like when I watch Home Far what was it, Far From Home, the second one, when I watch them, like, you know, why doesn't he call the Avengers? Like, Thor is not deceased, you know. Hawkeye is still around. Why doesn't he try to get one of them to help him with Mysterio? You see what I mean about that's one of the problems of having this shared universe. Again, because in comics, it's because you have how to explain it. So basically, the way Marvel's comics work and the way DC's comics work is that their stories are like all taking place around the same time. So you have multiple Spider-Man stories where he's like, "Hey, Fantastic Four, where are you? Oh, they're in space." And then it's it confirms at the same time as this story is taking place, you're getting Fantastic Four issue 200 and whatever. So with the movies, because we're not getting several of these a month, you're always left wondering what is this other character doing? You know, why doesn't he ask Ant-Man for help? You see what I mean about how like it doesn't when he's in this big universe with all these other heroes, it makes it harder to believe that he's really in that much of danger ever. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. That it's a lot more believable in the comics because oftentimes they explain why he can't get help. Like one of my favorite stories ever. It's either the second or third appearance of Venom, and he go like Peter thinks he can't defeat. Basically, the Fantastic Four are intrinsically linked to the origins of Venom because he left the suit with them. Um, so he goes to try to get their help to fight Venom, and then Venom, Eddie is like, by the way, I followed you and you didn't even know when you went to go get help from the Fantastic Four. So if you ever try to get another hero to help you, I'll just have to kill. He basically tells him, I know you tried to get help, and you better not try to do it again. Otherwise, I'll do this. But that goes back to my point of how in comics, which people crap on, and there are a lot of bad comics out there. I'm not pretending there aren't. They offer an explanation for where this character is, why this person can't help, stuff like that. And you never get it in these damn movies. They usually just hope you forget that all these other people exist that could assist them. It's like, okay, you gotta watch Far From Home. Pretend that Hawkeye doesn't exist, that Scarlet Witch doesn't exist. Pretend that pretend that Hulk doesn't exist. Pretend like it. That's some of the other movies don't have an issue with because he's not in a shared universe with 30 other heroes. No, Strange is the one that in No Way Home sets up the spell to get his identity erased, and then that's when all the different villains come out of it from alternate universes. So they're going to make Strange look like an idiot who can't cast magic properly for the purposes of this plot. And it's like all they had to do was just have it be set up to where he tries to do it himself because he goes behind Strange's back, right? And then he messes it up, and that's how all these villains show up. Because then that makes Strange still look intelligent because he's not the one that fumbled the spell. And it goes back to that thing of how he was like, you can totally believe Peter is so desperate that he would do something like that. Swear people don't even just think seriously about this stuff. Been the funniest thing ever? If we find that, like, let's say that Ledger lived, right? Which I would have loved that if he had survived past, filming The Dark Knight. It would be so hilarious if they did a Batman 3, like not The Dark Knight Rises, like a Batman 3 set a year later, 2 years later, whatever. And then we find out that Superman and Green Lantern, it's like, where were they when Gotham was getting blown to pieces? Because that would really hurt that movie's realism, knowing that there's these other heroes that, whether it's because they're pricks or they just don't care, don't show up to assist Gotham ever, while it's getting blown to smithereens. My point is they're making Doctor Strange look incompetent in order to fix a problem that Peter himself made so much for personal responsibility. I told you this, I don't even like, to me, this feels like the most disjointed trilogy I've ever seen. Like, you have the first movie, it's got Vulture, it's got a little thing of Scorpion. I'm like, okay, they're going to use Scorpion later. Then you have Mysterio. I'm thinking, oh, okay, they're going to use, uh, Scorpion after this. And then they're doing 5 villains, right? Which is not this. I don't know why you don't just do a Sinister Six, but whatever. It's like, okay, where is Scorpion? I've been waiting for him since 2017. Why don't you guys? And then Watts, before this movie was being worked on, talked about wanting to do Craven. I'm like, so what was the point of setting up Scorpion if you're not going to use him? This reminds me of you remember how in Iron Man 2 at the end of it you have Hammer and he's like, you haven't heard the last of me as he's getting arrested, and then we literally never see him again outside of that Hail to the King little TV, whatever that one shot thing was. It's like, what was the point of setting up Scorpion if movie after movie you don't come back to it? You know what? He's gonna be the new Lizard from the Raimi trilogy. Remember how like they mention Lizard in the first one, Dr. Connors, whatever. Then they show him in the second and third one, and then he never turns into Lizard. That's what Scorpion is in the MCU. We just keep seeing Matt Gargan in jail. I can't wait to get my turn in the ninth movie. Damn, that foreshadowing is horrible. At least the Raimi trilogy has an excuse, you know. Like Kirk Connors actually has a role to play in both two and three without being Lizard. Because in two, he's part of Peter. Like it's showing that he can't keep up with his personal life, and then in three, he has the plot of helping him find out what the symbiote is, which is completely normal and something that a character like that, who's brilliant like Peter, but also not involved with the superhero stuff, would be able to understand. Scorpion is just another throwaway villain. What are you talking about? I mean, if like, are you talking about in the MCU or are you talking about in general? Because like in the MCU, he's not even a villain yet. He's just a guy sitting in jail. But if you're talking about in general, that's BS. Matt Gargan has had one of the most transformative arcs out of any Spider-Man antagonist. Like he's directly tied to Jameson, who might as well be Peter's arch enemy, the one that we see more often than any other person that's antagonistic to him. Um, he also plays very big into Jameson's role as someone who calls Spider-Man this masked menace, but then he created a menace himself in trying to go after him. And he became what was it, the second Venom, the third Venom after Eddie. So Scorpion, Matt Gargan is not some throwaway minor character at all. He was on the Dark Avengers as Norman Osborn's fake Spider-Man. Like that's bogus. But it seems you're writing a lot of weird stuff today, so I guess I'll let it slide. No, that's hilarious. We have a lot of people that are like that. Like if a villain's not their favorite, they talk trash about it. So it is what it is. And why should he when he can just depend on the other heroes to help him? Yet the entire time Holland's played Spider-Man, he hasn't learned a single thing about responsibility and consequences. Remember, he takes his like mask off over and over, just everybody knows who he is, whatever. I still think it's funny. It's like we're gonna introduce Jameson, the character who is synonymous with slandering Spider-Man, right? Not knowing that he's paying Spider-Man to take pictures of himself. And then we're gonna reveal his secret identity right after this. Oh my god! And watch him have like just like 1 minute of screen time in No Way Home. Like they're not even gonna actually have him do anything in that plot other than show up for because we only see him in one scene in that trailer. No, that'll be hilarious. I would be shocked if he has more than like two scenes. I'm waiting for Brandon to explain to me how Scorpion's a throwaway villain. I'd love to know. I would love to hear this. I got faded breath. He took his mask off over and over, and now he's surprised that his identity has been compromised. Like what? You notice that in the Raimi trilogy, he never actually reveals his identity to anyone at all. Like that's the only version of the character that just will not reveal who he is to a single person. The villain always finds out. The only time he does, I take that back, is when he's with Doc Ock, and it's like a last minute desperate plea to save the city. When is Brandon gonna write to me? I wait for him. I'd love for him to explain his disdain for Scorpion. I'm waiting. You know that's crazy as hell when Spider-Man literally has the best rogues gallery of any superhero, bar maybe Batman, and you're gonna sit here talking that trash. That is hilarious. I'm waiting. So like, I don't know what's up with people, like, and it's been him this whole stream just writing like no one else is doing that. So I'd love to know how he's a throwaway villain. I can't wait to hear it. But one of the things we talked about is how a lot of people are like this, where if a villain's not their favorite one, they do like try to belittle them or talk trash. Because my best friend was like, I mean, with Doc Ock, what can he do? He just has the tentacles, and that's him. Like Doc Ock is literally considered one of Spider-Man's three arch enemies, and IGN actually said he was Spider-Man's greatest foe for multiple reasons. Being the first villain to ever defeat him, to where he almost quit being Spider-Man. Period. Uh, Founding the original Sinister Six team and being its leader, almost beating Black Cat to death, stealing his body and putting him in his own dying, rotting corpse. You know, Trying to marry Aunt May so that he could get her property and then kill her off. I thought it was hilarious. Like if any villain from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery deserves to be in like a top 10 Marvel villains list, that's not Norman Osborn. It's easily Doc Ock. And hell, at least unlike Norman, he didn't sit up dead for 20 years. He was actually around like since the beginning of his publication history. I always have to explain to people that Norman was dead for after he killed Gwen and got impaled by his glider. He was gone for over 20 years because there was no intention of ever using that character again. And then during the Clone Saga, that's when they retconned his death. I've just been hiding, that stuff. Admittedly, they have tried to do some interesting things with him, where he's, Iron Patriot and all the rest of that. But I thought he was a more interesting character back when he was written by Lee, because you actually did believe, and he was this way of being this good person that was turned evil by his alter ego, kind of like Lizard a little bit, but not like a physical transformation. So I personally prefer the older stuff with Norman to the new Norman, where he's just always a evil douchebag, because they retconned him to always being that way, but he wasn't. So still waiting for Brandon to explain how Scorpion's a throwaway villain. I hope he's typing. Where did Brandon go? Like, dude, you live in a major city where CCTV cameras are everywhere. You should know that you're supposed to be intelligent. Well, that's why the character worked better in the 60s than now, because someone putting on a costume before, because back then there were no cameras all over the place, you could really believe that he would just put this on and he could go in this little corner and nobody would see him. Now you have cameras in front of people's houses and the back and all these other spots. It's a lot harder to do that stuff. That's why Jameson worked a lot better in the 60s than current stuff, because back then with newspapers, you had a lot of people who would never have even seen Spider-Man because no one had cameras to record him with. So when he would just say, masked menace comes to bank and does this, you could believe, yeah, they read this story and this propaganda scared them. And, you could have somebody say, well, then just don't use Jameson. It's like, no, you could always not have your story set in the 2010s. There's an idea. You could have, like, I would love to have a story that's actually set in like the 60s or 70s, you know, like it's made now, but it's set, 40, 50, because a lot of the stuff that worked about the character could be used to better effect. But again, because they want to do these universes with 900 other heroes, they're not going to ever settle for something like that. That's why I would prefer if the Maguire version was the MCU one, because it would be accurate to how it was in the comics, where he predates the Avengers, he predates, you know, a lot of those other heroes. It would be, similar to that. Man, where did Brandon go? All right, let's count how many weird comments he made during the stream. Since he's decided to go mute. So the first weird one was the like, oh, the show no need for another season, which we already explained why that was ridiculous, because there are plenty of stories that have conclusive endings that still get continuations that create new stuff for the characters to go through. Where's the other one? There was another one that was kind of crazy too. All these time skips just create confusion for the story. Now, the point I was making about talking about time skips was that they're not always a bad thing, but when you use them to have characters undergo major development without actually ever explaining in your story how this happened, it becomes a very lazy way of doing things. Because you're taking shortcuts. You're going to say, well, we'll just have a year time skip or a 2-year time skip, and now this shy person is very brave and outgoing. It's like, but how did they become that? So it's not confusing. It's just they're using it to get away with not having to explain things and show development. And then the other one, Scorpion, is just another throwaway villain. That's a Lee Ditko villain. That's like, there's a reason why after those first 30-some issues of Spider-Man, the only major villains that show up that people actually remember, you can count them on one hand. It's Scorpion, Kingpin, Carnage, Venom, and then Hobgoblin to an extent as well. That's pretty much it. Like, all those Lee Ditko era villains are classic, which is why they've endured and are still used to this day in various mediums. I'm just waiting for him to explain to me how Scorpion's a throwaway villain. I'd love to know. It would be real hilarious to see what his result is. I don't know what's up with him today. He's just been writing weird stuff. Like, the first example of that was a few days ago on the Why Don't Play as Killer in DVD video, where it's like, oh yes, I'm very interested in why you don't play as Killer, even though I never actually leave any comments on your videos where you play the damn game itself. Waiting for him to leave his comment. Where did Brandon go? I'd love to know. Somebody always has to do this, man. Like, no one was even sitting here talking about who's throwaway and who isn't. We're talking about a narrative that does a poor job of leaving these different crumbs of stuff that's going to be seemingly expanded on later, and then doesn't deliver on it. But that's how I guess people are. They just have to, they act this way. It's like, oh, they have stuff in the first Iron Man that hints at Mandarin with the 10 rings. And then in the third one, we don't get Mandarin, we get a fake Mandarin. And then he only actually shows up in Shang-Chi. It's like, Mandarin's just a throwaway. And I was like, that's not the point. The point is, you had Favreau as the director of the first and second one, wanting Iron Man to fight Mandarin in the third one. And then he got so sick of all the executive meddling on the second one, he just said to hell with it. And they got Shane Black to, do the third one, who pretty much tore up all of his ideas anyway. They don't actually care about Spider-Man's character. He's just a cash cow. Well, the reason we're attempting to have a dialogue with Brandon is because if I'm sitting here and I'm explaining why something is not done correctly, and then someone says, "Oh, well, this is just this type," it's like that's not the point. So we're waiting for him to write back. That's why I'm not watching No Way Home. Like I said, I didn't see Homecoming or Far From Home in theaters. I'll see this one in theaters because I'm trying to support Alfred Molina. Other than that, and I do think it's screwed up that a movie will be judged negatively because two actors who everyone on board of it said were not in it are not in it. But you know what I'm saying, Akatsuki Merchant, right? If you're talking about why something doesn't work and how a story sets you up to believe something that didn't deliver on that, and then someone goes, "Oh, this is just a throwaway character," it's like that's not the point. It's really sad that we can't have a dialogue where people actually address what's being said and try to brush stuff away. Oh yeah, I don't. Well, James, that goes back to that thing when people are challenged over the stuff that they type. Suddenly they go mute. I don't know, for whatever reason, he's just like really dismissive of someone attempting to explain what problems they might have with a story or things they'd like to see resolved. That's why I mentioned, him writing, there's no need for another. Like nobody said there was a need. We were just saying that there are several things that they want another season they could use. Yeah, I will be waiting a long time. That'd be the funniest thing if it's like a little skit where once he gets challenged over the stuff he says, you find out that he wants to write back, but his keyboard's been like covered in foam or like whipped cream or something. Like he actually like physically can't type because the joke is that you thought it was him just not wanting to say anything anymore, but then you find out it's his keyboard preventing him from doing it. I do think it's sad because when you explain stories and talk about this stuff and actually try to get somebody else's opinion on it and then respond to it, and then someone is like really dismissive, it really does hurt the dialogue. Like everything that Akatsuki Merchant wrote, I read all of it, I respond to. I didn't go, "Oh, who cares? This is just," like, God damn, actually address what somebody's saying. Yeah, and as I'm just sitting here like it's tomorrow, we got the 20-hour stream. He's like, I finally decided to write something. Now, James, I know you're in No Way Home. I saw your cameo, where they had you playing some music, and then you post on YouTube, and it gets deleted by Electro. He just zaps out your computer. You're like, oh man, I gotta go make another record. Who would you consider a throwaway villain? Well, that's the issue. I don't know what he means. If he's talking about, like, he says Scorpion is a throwaway villain. So I don't know if he's talking about the comic version of the character who has a very rich backstory and role in Spider-Man history or mythos, or if he's talking about Scorpion, the character in the MCU who hasn't even turned into Scorpion yet. So I don't. That's the issue here. He's not explaining his points. It's like he's talking in riddles. And if like either way, it's bad. If he's talking about the one in the MCU, he's not even a villain yet. He's just a guy in jail. So how can he be a throwaway villain if he hasn't even been an antagonist to begin with? He has one scene in the whole three of these movies, or at least out of the first two. And if he's talking about the comic version, I'll laugh until tomorrow because Lee and Ditko made one of the most, literally, arguably the most rich rogues gallery of any superhero in 3 years. There's a reason why I was able to, to count on one hand all the villains that are actually remembered as Spider-Man antagonists that are memorable that weren't created by them. Because for the last 50 years, the main villains that they keep using over and over again came in those first 3 years of the character's publication history. So that's the issue. I don't know what he means, and he won't explain. He's just sitting, quiet in the corner now. It's really annoying too because it's like people want to weigh in on the dialogue, but then they don't want to actually explain what they're saying, and that's why we talked about how one of the I was talking about Scorpion in the MCU, but how is he a throwaway villain if he hasn't even been an antagonist yet? Like him and Peter have never even met. We see him sitting in jail. That's his whole role so far. So if he's never been Scorpion yet, how can you know he's throwaway? Unless you can see into the future. Or you've read some script for a follow up to No Way Home that we haven't seen. So I'd love to know what you mean by that. Because if they haven't used them, I don't really understand how he gets that designation by you. I do wish they'd bring back Vulture because Michael Keaton is great in everything. Just an amazing actor. I always have to keep explaining that one of the things about a lot of the villains is that they by themselves might not seem amazingly impressive, but they're still notable for having one or two things that they can do that the rest of them can't. So, out of the original Sinister Six, Vulture is the only one that can fly. And even out of most of the Rogues Gallery, the only other one that can fly, Green Goblin usually has to use his glider to even get around. So, um, it sucks because it's like people don't get when you have a cast of characters. More often than not, if you want each one to feel like an integral part of the story, they have to be able to do certain things other ones can't. Just like I was explaining to my friend, when I was talking about the original five X-Men, Angel is essential because he's the only member that can fly, which means that if they have a mission where they have to go somewhere, different city, it's far away, he's the only one who always has some reliable transportation. And again, if you're the only one in the group that can do something, you usually have, some utility. All he can do is fly. It's like, well, all Cyclops can do is shoot lasers. Like it's just they all have some specific ability that, when combined, actually makes them a formidable group. So I said, people just they don't get it. They're just really surface level. I guess that's the biggest problem I have with people. They're just extremely surface level. They don't think about how well a character was used, what could have been done with them. Like I always would laugh so much when I saw people would say for Dragon Ball, "Oh, this character was gotten 2 weeks." It's like, well, I mean, you can just have a training arc. You can have 10 chapters or 10 episodes where you have this person train or this character train, and then they can get stronger. They don't have to just become powerful overnight. You can have a gradual arc. That's how it was with Gohan and Z, where he goes from being the little boy that's protected by his dad, and his dad's at the time enemy, to being able to hold his own against upcoming threats, to where he actually in that arc by itself saves his dad from Vegeta along with Krillin, and then helps against the person that literally destroyed his entire race before he was even born, and then ends up taking out the villain who has all of his friends' cells combined. So it's sad that people don't understand what a character arc is, or they don't. And that's one of the reasons I like shows more than movies, because you're allowed to give more time to stuff and development that you wouldn't get in 2 hours. But people act like they don't understand that premise. Like in Super, there's no character that starts off extremely weak and just gets more powerful, that has like a character arc. That's one of the reasons why the series just doesn't work for me outside of a couple of moments, or stuff like that. And a lot of times when they try to establish a character arc, it never feels earned because they don't spend enough time on it. Like in the Tournament of Power, for example, which is the one arc of Super I would actually say I like, referring to the anime version. The manga version is horrible. They have Vegeta talk about wanting to save, like, win the tournament for Kava, and you're supposed to get this idea that he feels a connection with him because they're Saiyans, and when they fought each other during the Universe 6 tournament. But it's not given enough time to actually feel like something that is a connection that you can believe in or invest in, because they haven't done anything with Kaba since the Universe 6 tournament, other than the baseball episode. So it's another one of those things where a lot of the development that they try to have, they just don't give it enough time to actually marinate. And that's one of the reasons when you have a story that doesn't plan itself out, that it's not as good as when it does. The movies show all the highlights and are for people with low attention spans. Shows stretch out too long. I don't even know what you're saying. What does a woman have to do with anything that has been discussed in this stream since literally it started? I don't really understand. Sure, but you don't have to have fillers. Like Super as a show does not have filler because there was no manga that it's directly based off of. In fact, the manga for Super diverges from the plot more often than any other adaptation of the story before then. So because it was random in your mind, you needed to write it to me. I needed to see that. So are you telling me that a movie cannot have like a character in a movie, which you say are just to show all the highlights, cannot have a character arc? That you can't give a character in an hour and a half or 2 hours development? What potential are you talking about? Decent girlfriend. I don't know what you mean. How is this relevant to what I was talking about? I think development just has less room in movies. Sure, but are you saying that a movie can't have a, because I don't this is the issue here. You're telling me a movie is for highlights when we've had multiple films from different series that have allowed a character to develop over the course of a film, over an hour and a half or 2 hours. But if we do it in the show, you're going to say that it's going to drag out and be stretched out too long. It's kind of like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you do it in the movie, you're saying it's not going to have enough time, which I don't believe, because we've seen like 2 hours is not a little bit of time if you do it for one or two or three characters. It just isn't. Um, Especially if you tie it into the main plot. But then if you do it in the show, which you'll always have more time in the show, you're going to say that it's too long. So it's like what are you supposed to do? Right, but people complaining that the movie is too like the runtime is not congruent to development. You can develop a character in an hour and a half movie, and what is constituted as too long varies person to person. Like people complained about the length of the Dark Knight for over 10 years, and then guess what happened? Actual 3 hour long movies like Avengers Endgame and Zack Snyder's Justice League came out and now make the Dark Knight look kind of not too bad. And hell, people don't really care about runtime because if they did, Avengers Endgame wouldn't have, for a brief period, and even now, be one of the highest grossing films ever made. Like the runtime clearly didn't discourage people from going to see it. No, I'm just saying that there are multiple films that people complain about as being too long, but then you have movies that are even longer than that are still praised and considered good. So I don't know what he's trying to say here. Man, I remember when I was a kid, The Dark Knight is too long, and then here comes these 3 hour movies, and people are praising them and talking about how good they are. So hell, there was an extended cut of Batman versus Superman that's 3 hours. The what was it? I don't know what it's called, but it's like the unlimited edition, something like that. It's 3 hours long, and people say it's better than the theatrical one, which was shorter. So they give more praise to the longer version of the movie than the abridged one that we saw in theaters. I just don't get where that woman stuff came from. Like, I think it's funny where I have people who complain about me always talking about chicks, even though I don't. I do a whole bunch of videos about the news, and then like one of the times you do a stream where it's not about chicks, somebody else brings it up. It's like, all right, well, if I address it, I get crucified for them bringing it up. Like, what? Well, it's not even just movies that do that. You have shows do the exact same thing. We literally spent an hour talking about that. We brought up the Young Justice example, where after the first season, there's a 5 year time skip. After the second season, there's a 2 year time skip. We brought up the Buu saga of Dragon Ball, where that show had time skips of 2, 3, 5 years, all before that. But the Buu saga is the first one where they use it to just have stuff happen without showing it to you. Major character changes and decisions are happening off screen with no explanation in the story itself as to how it got there. So, it's not just movies that do that. I hope you realize that. I see so much potential in you. You can get a decent girlfriend. I don't even know what that means anymore. Like, one of my favorite parts of the chick thing is that there are actually some guys that will like make videos with the woman that they're with. And you have like other men who will come to like, she is so ugly. I'm like, wait a second. So you'll make fun of somebody for being single. And then when they get with the woman, you say she doesn't look good. So I like, you really are damned if you do, damned if you don't. You get made fun of for being single. And then they attack the way the woman looks because she's associated with you. That is the hilarious, just never ending, you know, hanging of a man they love to do. I'm not criticizing you about women. I just want to say I see potential. You could be a player with a hot. Yeah, I don't. What sexual market value? How do you not know what a decent? Well, if you have, oh, we'll explain that. I'm not like the people that come in my comment section where they write riddles. When you have people who tell you that you have to be a millionaire or have some excessive amount of money or exercise to some great degree to go on a date with someone who doesn't have a pot to piss in, has never been in the gym or lifted a single thing in their entire life. Um, that is generally suggesting that a woman that is ideal for you is someone who doesn't like you for who you are, but more so what you own or some cosmetic thing that's temporary anyway, which I don't find appealing. That's not something I think is interesting. But there are a lot of men who will push a man to do those types of things for a woman to find him appealing, even though it's all surface level BS that is entirely one sided and in favor of her. So that's what I mean by I don't know what it means because everyone has a different definition. I could easily say that an ideal partner for me would be someone that I don't have to do 900 different things to impress, but you've had plenty of chicks you thought liked you, and then they go and do their little 360 renege and oh, I thought I was interested, but I'm not. I just got really confused things. So that's the point that you don't know what the definition for a decent girlfriend is because all these different people have different ideas of what that is. That they're trying to like push on you, you know, and failing miserably to do so. By the way, an individual's rating of, I mean, you realize beauty's an eye of the beholder, right? And that I've had plenty of men attack me over the way I look. So it's like, what if you get rejected by chicks, you're just gonna, regardless of what way you look, you're just gonna have men attacking you over the way you look anyway, or some other characteristic. You can go watch the video. I've been criticized for everything. They attack you over what you wear, your voice, if you wear glasses. I'm like, who the I swear, man, like it's so the double standards are so evident. Like when I was in school, I never saw, and just anywhere, I've never seen in real life two guys who are like, oh man, this woman is so hot. Look at her chest, look at her behind, but you know, I don't like that she wears glasses, so I'm not interested. I've never seen that, not once. I had people talking trash about my necklace, this minor, completely inconsequential part of my appearance. And again, I've never seen a man or a set of men say they don't find a woman attractive because she has a necklace or glasses or a shirt they don't like. It doesn't exist for chicks. I've never seen someone tell a woman, you want a man to like you? You just have to win the lottery. Never. Like it's extremely one-sided, which is why I don't want to put up with it anymore. Doing all this stuff for a result that you already know is coming because it's happened over and over again, that by the end of it, you're going to get blamed for the result no matter what you do. So I'm cool. I've had my fill. I love these streams, man. Here we go again. Listen, I word Goku. If you have a problem with my hairstyle or my face or my dressing sense, you can always watch somebody else. Nobody's making you tune into my stream. I didn't will you here. I didn't bring you here. I didn't talk about you. And it goes back to this thing of how it seems like a lot of you guys don't really think when you write your comments. You're aware of the fact that hair grows, right? Okay, let's do a flashback. When I was 13, I didn't have any facial hair. None whatsoever. Have had different hairstyles. I've even had older videos that show me with shorter hair. And guess what result I kept getting? I'm not interested. I don't feel the same way about you. What's constructive about that? Like what you're pretending that someone has had the exact same style of hair or length of hair for their entire life, which you know is BS because everybody knows it grows and gets cut off gradually. And like I said, I don't see you saying to a woman, well, your hairstyle, maybe if you changed it, this man, Justin, would find you appealing. Keep yourself up, man. Yeah. I don't know how I'll live if I were Goku doesn't like the length of my hair. How will I go on? Onward Goku, please. Please approve of my hairstyle. I'm begging you. Guys, I think I'm gonna have to retire. Onward Goku doesn't like my hairstyle. I can't keep this up. He just, if I don't get his approval, I might as well not even exist. Where's my rope? Now, James, have you ever seen someone tell a woman that she has to have some specific grooming or style of hair to get a date? I want you to answer that question honestly. I've never seen it. I've been attracted to chicks with short hair, with long hair, ones that were tall, ones that were short. And it goes back to this thing of how there's like this, you guys have this almost like you want me to be a stormtrooper. You want me to fit into this specific bubble, right? And then no matter how much, like you, it's been proven, even if you do the things that these guys want you to do, if you don't get with the woman, guess they're going to do? You probably did this. You probably did that. Anything we can say to defend a dingbat, because it's always your fault. But I want to ask Iword Goku, and I won't even read a single one of his comments until he answers this question. Do you believe that men with facial hair cannot get a date? I'd love to know. I want you to answer that question, right? Yes, in the chat, if you believe that a man with facial hair cannot get a date or a girlfriend or a wife or a romantic partner who is female. I'd love to know your answer to that. I'm waiting. Do you believe that a man with facial hair is incapable of getting a date with a woman? I see, so look, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read what he's writing because I'm away from my computer. I see a comment that does not look like a yes or a no. So I'm going to ask you one more time, and then we're going to block you. Do you believe that a man with facial hair is incapable of getting a date or romantic partner? He didn't even say that. Actually, he did. Like, Brandon, I know you're on some kind of like weird troll thing today with the stuff you're writing. But when you have someone who's telling you that you have to be clean shaven, all like that, that's the inference we can draw from what is being said. Well, I'm not exactly a fan of what are supposed to be straight men attacking me over my appearance. I don't do this to you. I don't go on the I Word Goku channel and go, let me see what he looks like. I'm waiting with bated breath to see what his appearance is. Oh man. I just try to be consistent. I don't go around attacking people over the way they look or trying to tell them what way they need to look in order to appeal to the magic holy triangle. So I don't understand why that's then done to me. It's just a suggestion that nobody asked for. Oh my God, it's my favorite computer clown making his grand return. Boy, I've been waiting to get rid of you since March. So, guys, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take Tony/Trevor's comments and we're going to do a video where we turn him into the butt of all jokes. I have been waiting for my favorite clown to show back up and write some weird comments. The same prick that said back in March he would stop watching me, but for whatever reason, I'm the man he can't seem to forget. I've been waiting for him to return. So Trevor, Tony, whatever you call yourself, rat, romantic aficionado Tony, we're going to screenshot every single comment you've ever written and do a video talk about how creepy you are. Because there is no reason why a man who said in March, I'm leaving. You can stay here with the self-loathing Justin if you'd like, is still watching me in November. I'm laughing too. I mean, I see a clown, I laugh. I go. So look, boy, we're gonna get your comments. We're gonna make a video with you as the headliner. We're gonna say, hey, here's this guy that got obsessed with Justin for half a year. Why is it so hard for you to understand? A well-groomed man is more attractive to women. Trevor, do I have to make a family photo stream where I show my grandpa with an afro, with a beard, and married? Where I show my father with a beard, with my mother? Are you really trying to sell this new BS crap about men who have facial hair being incapable of getting a woman? Because I have proof that that's not the case. Unless someone used CGI to put hair on them after the fact. A well-groomed man is more attractive to women. It's not that you can't get one with facial hair. It's keeping it neat and tidy, simple. I love how the man who never shows his face is talking about me. That's what you guys love to do. We'll talk about somebody's self-loathing, but then you too scared to turn the camera and show your face. That's hilarious. Oh, Megumi, I'm glad you showed up. So let me tell you how this started. We were having this really, for the most part, cordial dialogue about TV shows, stuff we liked, how to use these time skips to mess with narratives to not explain stuff, right? So I-Word Goku shows up and out of nowhere starts bringing up the chick stuff, and then Trevor, like the whatever weird obsession that he's had with me since March, the guy that said back in March he was not watching me anymore, right? Shows up and starts talking about, oh, I've been looking at Justin's face and analyzing it, and to me he's such a disgrace. So now we're gonna do a video on him about how for whatever reason he can't stop watching me. It's like he's obsessed with me. He just won't leave me alone. So we'll be making fun of him and making him the butt of all jokes for everybody to laugh at. Oh, what is this new trash he wrote? No one is saying you can't have a beard. I'm just saying it may help being better groomed. We are straight men. That's why we talk about the way another man looks. Let me debut a new song. It's based off of I Believe I Can Fly. I believe I control. When I go on Justin's channel, I gotta scroll. I think about him every night and day. I type things to him that in real life I'd never say. When I'm online, I'm bold and pushy. But in reality, my name is Trevor or Tony, and I'm just a pussy. I troll him on my computer and phone, and for whatever reason, I can't just leave him alone. I'm obsessed with this man that I've never met in real life. He takes up my attention span, and I watch him all the time in spite of my claimed strife. I obviously would say this to you. Yeah, that's why you won't show your face and you have to change your username from Tony to Trevor, right? Right? I'm telling you, in real life, people don't act like this. I've had plenty of conversations with guys who talk about insane some stuff that some woman does. We don't sit there going, well, I've been analyzing the way this other man looks, and to me, I personally would recommend that his beard be cut to a certain length. We don't do this. That's not my point. My point is being well groomed may increase your chances. What's so hard to understand? There's dudes with bad teeth who get women. Not having nice teeth increases but having nice teeth increases your chances. Damn, he went from being apparently in the shower with me when I bathe or shower to like now knowing being my dentist. But you really don't think this is creepy? That you are so obsessed with making it my fault that you are over analyzing the hell out of a man you've never met? You really think all these chicks are well groomed? Oh, I guess they don't have to do that because they got that magic triangle that you just love to defend, huh, Trevor? Huh, romance aficionado Trevor, aka Rat, huh? Now those double standards, they make you feel strong, huh? Okay, so let me ask James this because it seems reasonable. James, you think a guy with a messy, with over, how the hell do you know what weight I am? Oh my God, it's gonna be revealed that Trevor is my doctor from 10 years ago, huh? He breaks my house and like analyzes my body when I'm sleeping. He's like, I see the size of his stomach, and like, you guys really don't get how creepy this is. I wasn't talking about you. I was talking hypothetically. Well, go talk hypothetically somewhere else. You said back in March you were gonna stop watching me. I haven't deleted a single comment you have left on this channel, even though you guys like to say he likes to ban, because I'm laughing at you. I'm showing how mentally ill you are. I don't sit around worrying about the love life of other men. Sorry, it's not my hobby. Like when people actually are concerned about themselves, they don't spend too much time thinking about. Again, it's just weird. Like, what is wrong with you? But I guess for us to know that, it would require introspection. But here's my thing, James. I think the I Word Goku dude was saying maybe it's better haircut. Hey, I like how you like to, sidestep certain stuff. So why is it that you guys never criticize the hair of chicks ever? Do any of them have to be well groomed to get a date with me? Or are they just good as they are because of their gender? And your complaining continues. You love the complaining. You damn right I'm turned up. This creep said in March he would leave me alone. But hey, I'm the man he never seems to forget. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I am glad too, because now we know for a fact you love the complaining. Because guess what? I don't see you leaving comments on any of my gaming videos. I don't see you leaving comments on new stuff. The only time, and as a matter of fact, we talked about other stuff for the whole first hour plus of the first hour and a half of this stream. You didn't leave one comment, but somehow when it's romance stuff gets mentioned, you always seem to reappear because you love it. So don't write any more comments about how, oh, I don't like that he talks about, because guess what? If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. And then you're gonna at me like I don't see a comment on my own channel. Don't require a woman to be well groomed, and she doesn't have to be. But if men want women to have makeup, dude, you know damn well chicks don't need makeup to get a man. Don't like. Does anyone believe that trash? Does anyone in here besides him believe women need makeup to get a date? Like, what are you talking about, you nuts? Look good. How the hell can a broad on the computer smell me through the computer? Well, they use the vents. And, like, what are you talking about? Well, if men want women to have makeup, look good, smell good, be well groomed, as men do want, then guess what? Dude, he says this stuff like he's in a courtroom, like he's saying something so profound. Like, I'm gonna go, oh, damn, I didn't think about this. Wow. Women will have to do that to attract the man they want. They don't have to do anything other than have a vagina. Don't even sit here and play that crap. It's like how many chicks you see sitting up making whole groups talking about getting rejected by men over and over. And you're gonna sit here and try to spin that false narrative. That is hilarious. If you really believe chicks need to wear makeup to get dates, there is no reason for you to talk to me. You can go on the Twilight Zone channel. Because that's the tree you're barking up when you start talking that way. Why do they always need to offer their unsolicited advice? Do you know how insane you sound? This guy has sounded insane since March. You come to someone's channel, a person you claim you don't like, a person that lacks introspection, all this nasty stuff, a person you say, over and over again. You're going to stop watching, but you can't because you're obsessed with him. You mean to tell me a woman who has armpit hair is overweight? Dude, I've seen overweight chicks get men. You know what I would love to do? See, I have this rule about I don't like to post people's pictures because I don't like people talk about the way I look, so I don't talk about the way other people look. I could go on Facebook right now and make a 2-3 hour video showing all kind of chicks that are overweight that are with men. Hell, me and my best friend used to laugh looking at pictures of a woman who at her wedding was big, like the man was skinny, and she looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And you're gonna sit up here telling that lie. What is your plan on getting women? I said more of a. Oh, I'm not. I'm not reading because you're not listening. That's why when you left your first weird comment back in March, you literally responded to 2 sentences of my video. So guess what? Just like Eddie Murphy's dad used to say, you get what you gave. You didn't respond to the majority of what I've said in that video, so I don't respond to the majority of what you're writing. It's all fair, huh? What's my to read your comment, but then you can't even address what they're talking about? I don't know. Maybe he wants to be my boyfriend or something. That's how creepy these guys are. Like he's talking about seriously. Notice and this goes back to my point about how my love life is not consequential to chicks. There are no women writing 30 comments about the way I look or some other thing I need to improve to get with them. But guess what we have doing that? Supposedly straight men. By the way, we have proof that on one of my streams, Trevor said he was in a relationship. So why don't you go talk to your girlfriend? Why am I getting all this attention instead of the woman that you're allegedly with? Nobody thinks that's weird. He'll write 30 comments about the love life of another man before he goes to talk with his, supposed woman. Nobody thinks that's odd or bizarre or kind of, strange. How do you know what height I am? By the way, I stopped answering that question because every time you answer it, you have another person come and ask it again. So I like what do you No, they never do. Well, the fundamental issue is these guys will never admit that chicks have an overwhelmingly inherently easier time getting a man because for one thing, chicks don't approach men that they find attractive. They reject men that they think are physically attractive or that they speak to for extraneous lengths of time. And he will never fault them for doing that stuff and making it to where there's one side that has to do nothing to get a partner and another side that gets crucified even if they do the stuff that these people tell them to do. I'm not speaking directly about you. Damn, I'm using an example. I'm not saying your height is 5 feet. Of course, women have an easier time. Wait, I wasn't denying that. I do fault them. Yeah, that's why you wrote. I don't know. Have you ever gone on a woman's video and written 5 paragraphs talking about her character and how she lacks introspection, and she keeps complaining and self-loathes, even though I can't give any examples of her self-loathing because she actually believes in herself, which is why she won't talk to men that waste her time. You never did it to chicks. So you can say you find error in them, but there's only one person getting verbally crucified, which is yours truly. Like I said, the ultimate proof that this love life stuff doesn't matter to chicks is because you never see chicks come on my channel and do this. We had one weird broad, which might not even been a broad, because like this person didn't show their face, write a few comments 2 times, and then she was gone. But every other time when it's somebody writing whole paragraphs, it's always another man. Again, if my love life was so important to chicks and so essential, why isn't it chicks saying things? Wouldn't they be upset? I wish chicks did this where they're like, please talk to us. Don't leave us alone. But it's men, supposedly straight men. The sad thing is, men will give women so many passes. Yeah, including yourself. And men have a lower bar in terms of standards, it seems, because we're horny and it's hard to get anything. You can't get a date without talking to 90 of those bastards. And you're gonna sit here and fault me when I get sick of it. Because remember, I'm like, why don't you just come out and admit you think I'm supposed to be their slave? I'm supposed to never get tired of them. If they do something screwed up to me, I can't criticize it because all hail the holy triangle. Just admit it. You want them to repeal the Emancipation Proclamation? You want me to go pick some cotton for these chicks? Come on, just say it. Like the writing is all on the wall. Do you feel like being better groomed simply Okay, I'm getting ready to ban both you and that I word guy. I have had multiple years where I asked out chicks where I didn't have a beard, where I had shorter hair, and it didn't make a single difference because they don't care. It's a very minute detail, and it's a waste of people's time to write several paragraphs analyzing the living hell out of the physical appearance of one man when this is happening to so many goddamn men that they make entire groups about it. Every man that gets rejected is not well groomed. That's yeah, totally. Dude, the funniest thing is a lot of them didn't even see what the way I look because we talked about like on Reddit. Most of them didn't even see what I look like. So there goes that part of your logic just shattered, just thrown right out the window. Women who want relationships with men expect us to be 6 feet tall and shape, have six figures. Right, but when these chicks are very short, don't own a single thing other than their triangle between their legs and don't exercise whatsoever. I can't I don't understand why I should be expected to accept them for the way they are while you yourself are not accepted for the way you are. I don't see how that's fair or how that's like something that would sound appealing to me. But again, when you're considered their slave, which is what people think men are supposed to be to these modern chicks, they like those double standards. They like you doing all this stuff forever to try and get the tiniest bit of stuff from a woman. I believe I control. When I see Justin's channel, I've got to stroll. I think about him every night and day. I type the things that in real life I'd never say. That's literally him. What I'm getting at is this. Yes, women can still. I don't even understand the point of having a dialogue with you because we literally like this same song and dance happened the Saturday after you left those weird comments in my video in March, and then it seemed to get resolved. Then you acted normal for a little bit. Then you changed your name to start trolling again. So like I don't even like I don't know why we shouldn't just screenshot everything you've written so we can laugh at you in a video and just block you. Like seriously, what's the point of having a dialogue with a person who when you think it's getting better or they're going to talk to you like a civilized human being, they're just going to go and reset the button and do the same like status quo stuff. I don't really understand the point. Like this is turning into a remake of that stream from March where he comes in here, he writes some antagonistic stuff, he gets confronted over the antagonistic stuff, he wrote it, then he seems to like act normal, and then there's like a supposed understanding at the end of it, just for it to be reset a few months later with him changing his name and thinking that we're so dumb we don't know it's the same account even though all his old comments are still on there. What Doug's? Like I don't even know what you're saying. Oh, we knew there was some kind of substance you were on. If you were writing the stuff you were writing was so weird. We had a feeling that that was the case. Dude, I don't even know. Like none of these chicks I talk to even go to the gym or like tall. Like they don't have to do anything other than have that magic triangle, and just these guys will like throw themselves in the line of Megumi. Remember that scene in Spider-Man 3 when Harry like throws himself in the way of the of Venom like trying to stab Peter with his glider? That's what this guy is doing. Oh my god, there's a chick that's about to get criticized, and then like right there, he's like every time, like stupid. And again, this isn't his sister. It's not his mom. It's not any woman that it would actually make a little bit of sense for him to act this irrational about. Random chicks. All right, let me see what Megumi wrote. Yeah, that's why I am all for getting rid of them before they take up so much time on the stream and stuff that has been discussed so many times. Well, Brandon, like talking about looks is a complete waste of time because these guys are so antagonistic. They want you to believe that every single woman is out of your league, is so amazingly beautiful. Oh my God, they're all supermodels, even though they've never seen what a single one I approach looks like, because I don't post any of their pictures ever. So like there's no point to even sitting there and actually taking that stuff to heart, because no matter what the woman actually looks like, because they can't see what she looks like, they have this fantasy of her being so amazingly attractive to where you might as well not even bother. They're gonna do this with every chick. They're all too good looking. They're all so well groomed and all so in shape and all, because they don't actually see anything, so they get to put you up against their unrealistic fantasy of the woman. And when you can't live up to it, they lash out. I'd love to know why my look matters to another man, but whatever. No, Megumi, they've never seen what a single one of these broads looks like, and they're over here analyzing my appearance like I'm trying to talk to Scarlett Johansson or something. At least that's actually an accomplished woman who's done something that most chicks will never come close to doing. You gotta go to the gym to go on a date with a woman who's 300 pounds. Yeah, gotta be a millionaire. Talk to somebody that doesn't have a pot to piss in. Yeah, and they don't see what's wrong with this. And like I said, it's not chicks complaining I don't talk to me anymore. It's other men, which is the ultimate confirmation that this is kind of not a big deal for chicks. Not because, you know, every single one of them would think I'm so, but no, but because they have loads and loads of other men that are talking to them anyway. So it's like they took some that is objectively shown to not matter to chicks and are gassing it up as this really big issue. This one guy saying, I'm not talking to them anymore. That's like so horrible. I swear, Trevor, it's like you are just the ultimate goofball. Like, you mean you know how insane I would look if I told a woman, uh, hey, I know you were a teenager when this started, but I bet in 10 years you haven't changed at all. I just think if Justin has been struggling to get women like every other man online, why not change something? I did. You go out and approach them, you get the same result. You stop approaching them, you get the same result. You talk to them and don't and try to be friends, you get the same result. You talk to them and directly ask them on a date, you get the same result. Like you have to be a really cynical douchebag to think that someone has stayed the exact same way for 10 years. But like I said, when you're doing it's just like with the I Were Goku's comments about I bet if you didn't have a beard, you could increase your life. I didn't have a beard for years, and it was the same results. Like, I don't, that's why I said these guys, it's just worthless talk. And again, no one explains to me what the hell have any of these chicks ever done that remotely makes them worth doing all this stuff for. I'd rather put the work in, be well groomed, at least try for many years until giving up. What kind, like, you weren't even there. You don't have a single shred of evidence of what I looked like when this started, the year after that, the year after that, the year after that, because there are no videos of that period. But I like that you get to assume things and, if whatever floats your boat and fits your narrative, huh? Also, by the way, I know you think it's cute to write comments to other people while I'm talking to you. So you can keep doing that, but just know that if you do another one, we're gonna screenshot everything you wrote, right? And then we're gonna ban you because if I'm speaking to you and you keep trying to not address what I'm saying, we got to activate our Thanos snap. So keep on. Just because you're well groomed and in shape, it doesn't mean you get a girl in 3 months or 6 or in one. You know what? We're actually gonna pause the stream here. So here's what we'll do. If Trevor writes anything else, we'll just delete it. Because this comment is a perfect example of how insane these guys have let this stuff. How to explain it? What was that one song lyric? I'm gonna defend women like I'm blind, because being obsessed with sticking up for them has destroyed my mind. Now, someone needs to explain to me. He writes, just because you're well groomed and in shape, it doesn't mean you get a girl in 3 months or 6 months or 1 year. It still may take a lot of years, but you just roll the dice. People always say men are entitled when they think a woman doesn't like them. But what the hell entitles chicks to you having to wait years for one of them to go on a date? It's not like you just went up to one and then, okay, I won't try to talk to another one for 2 or 3 months. You talk to so many of them, you lose count. And it's like doing those extra things and them still not guaranteeing that you're going to get with someone is the exact reason not to do them. Because I don't invest loads of time into things that, first of all, I don't want to do. Secondly, don't guarantee that I'm actually going to get the thing I want. I don't see anybody telling chicks, well, a man will eventually find you attractive. Maybe it won't be in 3 months or 6 or a year, but if you just keep waiting multiple years, no one expects them to have this weird, lengthy endurance. It's only men that are like tasked with, you must continue to wait for the magic woman, the one that's so different from all the others. Like that, only men. Like, what are you even typing? It's weird stuff. Chicks don't have to wait years for a boyfriend, but you have to wait years for a date. Not to get married, not to have some life partner, a date. And you don't see where somebody would look at that and say, yeah, this is probably not worth my time. What am I not addressing? Dude, these guys talk in circles. Oh, thank you, Iward Goku. I hope I look more handsome for you. Yeah, because my secret goal is to attract random men online, right, to my appearance. I don't know how I'll go on if obtuse, you're the one here who's being obtuse by the amount of insane, ridiculous stuff you're imposed. And like I said, just like, hey, remember the other thing we talked about? They never show any proof that they do it themselves. That's why we made fun of him for not showing his face. No proof that he's groomed, and if he is, no proof he's with the woman. Just people. Where's the damn thing? Look at me, I'm Trevor. I get to hide my face while talking about another man and get to show no proof that I've ever accomplished a single thing other than running my mouth as I talk about what another man needs to do to get with a random woman who's only special because she has a triangle like another billion people on the planet. That's Trevor. That's him. Saying you need to be well groomed to get a date to one gender, but the other is fine the way they are. Somehow they are entitled. Well, guys, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say how many years it takes. I'm just saying, give yourself the best chance. But if the best chance still doesn't guarantee that you don't have to spend years trying to talk to chicks What is the point of doing all this stuff you don't want to do and you wouldn't be doing for any other reason than to appeal to a random woman who probably will not do any of this stuff to appeal to you in the first place? Again, one of the biggest reasons nobody wants to put up with them anymore is it's completely one-sided. The man does all this stuff to appeal to her, but she's fine as she is. And you don't see what's wrong with that. The woman gets to go on a date or dates with men, right? After months, whatever. But you have to wait years to get a date. Not to get married, not to have a life partner, just a date. To have someone sit across from you at a restaurant for an hour or watch a movie with you for 2 hours for one night necessitates years of asking out random chicks. You think that that's appealing, that that's something I would want to do forever. Women don't owe men anything, but you owe them your years of asking them out because they're entitled to you going up and approaching them forever. No matter what they do to you, you can never quit. You can never say, I'm tired of this. You can never get fatigued or sick of it. I always say I have changed. I used to believe you just went out and asked out enough chicks, eventually one will say yes. But when that number got so big and I saw year after year go by, I was like, no, I don't believe this anymore. I think they will always find some nitpicky BS to circle jerk their way out of being interested in me. Or if they say they are, they'll do some little weird scheme or ulterior motive crap like the biggest gold digger in US history did 5 years ago. And they've never shown any instance of proving me wrong. They will sit there and talk to a man that they're not interested in for hours. We literally have evidence of that. For hours, for days, for weeks, for months. And you're supposed to just put up with this forever. That's why I want Trevor to admit he doesn't see me as a person. I'm supposed to be a woman's slave. Do you find any women unattractive? I don't know. I haven't rejected 90 women, so I find enough attractive to at least go on a date with. You clearly aren't reading yourself. Find the way she is, but I still think women have to pass a level of attraction, whatever that attraction is, based on your taste. So to say she has to be fine the way she is, actually, it's very correct because you guys have never even seen a single one of these chicks I've ever spoken to because I don't post their pictures ever. So you have no idea of knowing how well groomed they are, what they look like. And yet I still have men attacking me over the way I look. I still have men telling me about how this one's out of my league in spite of never seeing what she looks like or knowing anything about her other than her interaction with me. So it's completely valid for me to assume that no matter what happens with these chicks, I'm always going to be the goddamn one that you guys crucify and hang like he's the new Jesus Christ. You guys find some women unattractive. I can literally count the number of chicks I've rejected on one hand. Like, it's not the same. And by the way, because we know what Trevor's going to do with this. Well, if you had maybe accepted those women, you would be accepted yourself. I bet you would never see him tell a woman, "Oh, you rejected a guy or two guys in high school. Oh man, nobody's ever going to like you again." You would never see him do that because remember they're allowed to reject as many men as possible, and then still believe that there's this magic perfect guy waiting out in the distance, right? Because they don't have to spend years on dating websites and having people overanalyze their appearance so that they can get the magic banana. Just double standards. Have at it. Oh, banana. They love to bring up race. That's their favorite thing. Well, Megumi, they have a narrative where they want to make this your fault no matter what. So, in spite of me being accepting of every race and nationality of chicks, period, because I'm not someone who believes someone has to be like my preference is black chicks, but I'm not against other ethnic groups. So they have to frame it to where you had chicks that were interested in you, but you didn't like them not because you don't find them attractive due to the way they act, the way they look. Oh, it's because of their ethnicity. Yeah, got you. Because remember, it's always your fault. You are always to blame. You are always the one that they hang this cross around and put the needle in your in your hand. Every time. Why were they unattractive? Why was those women unattractive? First one had 3 kids. I don't know why I have to date someone that has multiple children. I don't. I'd love to know the explanation for that. I would say she was physically attractive, but again, I don't like why do I as a single person have to be with someone who has multiple children? I don't understand. The second one was a classmate of mine who I thought was like I didn't find her attractive. She was overweight. I thought she was really stupid. She was cheating on her tests. Like I just saw nothing appealing about her. I spoke to her a couple of times because we were seated together in this room, but like I don't feel bad. I have no regrets. Exactly. They try to find a way in everything to cite as the fatal flaw for you not get every time. Remember, chicks get to reject loads of men. Don't worry, princess. Someday the magic guy will be there and he'll love you. Blah, blah, blah. But if you reject 1 or 2 chicks over your whole lifetime, you shall remain by yourself and single forever. Have you found a woman physically unattractive ever in your life? Of course, but I'm not the one that's rejected 90 chicks. Like, if I spoke to that many of them, most of them I saw what they look like and was content enough to at least go on a date with, evidently. And I'm so tired of you guys always finding a way to make it my fault, which includes trying to, because he's not the person who did this, trying to like say I have these like high standards, right? You have the one guy who's like, you need to settle. It's like, settle for what? I was fine with all these different chicks. They're the ones that botch it and screw it up. Damn, he's questioning something he's trying to see or something else. I'm saying I didn't find her attractive in any capacity. Yet an objective standard for attractiveness. No, it's hard for me to understand why you don't understand where I would get fatigue after getting the same result over and over again. Why I would get fatigue after every time you talk about this, you have someone who wasn't there, who didn't see a goddamn thing, trying to make it your fault for a situation you cannot control. Just as that one overweight, dumb chick at my school couldn't make me like her, I can't make any of these chicks online or in person like me. I'm not Professor X. I can't jump in their skin like Baby from GT and make them like me. It's a very simple concept that you guys don't want to accept because if you did, then it would be harder to paint me as the person who's responsible and is at fault for everything, as part of my new Jesus Christ status. Told you, if I came on here and I said I rejected 90 chicks, I turned all these different chicks, didn't think they were attractive, you would not see Brandon going, don't worry, man. Some woman will show up one day and she'll like you, and they need to do a better job of appealing. He would say, "Well, look, you're single because every time somebody shows interest in you, you think you're too good for them." When you get rejected by 90 chicks, he says it's your fault as well because you weren't group. So remember we talked about, right? Only members of my rogues gallery are the same people who can find you guilty in a situation where if it were done by a woman, they would find her innocent. Like if you get rejected, it's your fault, and if you reject all these different chicks, it'll be your fault too because they want to make it your fault no matter what. Well, Megumi, you're not going to accept any and everything from a woman. So when you said earlier that women can just be who they are, it's false. We never said we didn't have a standard. We're saying our standards are sure as hell not so unrealistic as to where there's been multiple chicks, loads of chicks, who at the very least met our standard enough for us to want to go on a date with them. You're not going to find any examples of me talking to some woman for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and then, well, I thought about it, but I'm not really interested in you. We never claimed we didn't have standards. We claimed our standards are certainly nowhere near as astronomically high as chicks. I don't go around saying this woman needs to be well groomed for me. She needs to have $1 million and she needs to do this like because I will accept the person for who they are if I find them attractive. which has been done by so many chicks to where I've lost count because I don't have an unrealistic fantasy of women. I don't expect them to do all this insane stuff just to go on a date with me. Yeah, he knows you never said, dude. Listen, it's just a waste of time even like addressing his stuff. Yeah, the standards for attractiveness are completely arbitrary and subjective. What one person finds appealing is another's bread and butter. Yes, this is exactly why, while there are chicks that I would never date because I find them unattractive in some way, shape, or form, there are other men who will always be accepting of them because, just because me and somebody else have a banana doesn't mean we both share the same attractiveness that we see in someone. Oh, it is going nowhere, James. But I felt kind of bad that Megumi showed up so late, so I wanted him to kind of see some of the insane stuff that's written to me. Uh, Alfonso didn't write anything else after his weird question. Well, I guess we'll just have to wonder. I don't know what the point of asking if they're all black is. Oh, yeah, I remember now. It's because they wanted to blame me for everything. Like I said, the chick stuff is a combination of being damned if you do, damned if you don't, and nothing good coming out of it almost ever. When you have a system where people will defend one gender simply because of their gender, right? And they refuse to look at a situation in a nuance because romance is a nuanced topic, right? They won't look at it in a nuanced way. So that's why they make up, BS about, oh, your beard is this, your hair is that, because it's all suited to their narrative. They want to believe in this idea that if I can just nitpick this man, I can find his fatal flaw, which will always be some that they're going to pick out no matter what you do. Um, as we showed from the "I've been criticized for everything" video, they will attack you over anything. So you're supposed to live to this unrealistic standard of men, right? Who weren't even there, and chicks as well. When you can't do it, you get no woman, and you also get attacked by the men for not having a woman, in spite of the fact that they're doing this to so many goddamn men that there's whole groups of men that talk about this. I'm talking about I do have introspection, Trevor. Or Tony, whatever your name is. I apologize for not being able to meet chicks unrealistic fantasy. I apologize that the same men who will accuse me of having no confidence hide their faces. They type a bunch of stuff on the computer. I apologize for the same men that will accuse me of needing to do all these different things to get with a woman, never showing any proof that they've done it themselves or never the woman themselves. So not a single guy in my comment section ever proved they're with a woman. They just come here, type all their little stuff and skedaddle. Like that Alfonso guy talking about, were they all black? I bet you that's what he does. And look, if he does, that's cool. There are people who don't like certain races. Like I remember I tried to talk to this one hooker that wouldn't do things with a black guy, which I think is insane because if it's a business and they're willing to pay for whatever, just it's. But my point is, people are allowed to have certain preferences, but whenever I have a preference, even though that wasn't my preference, not liking black chicks, I don't know where they come up with that trash. You still get crucified anyway. So yeah, Megumi, sitting here and analyzing one guy like I'm just the end all be all for men they make me bigger than I actually am. I'm just one person, and I'd love to see him do this to every single guy that has a problem with getting the chick. Because there are loads of us. That's why every time we do a video about chicks, it gets a whole bunch of likes and support because everybody knows there's something wrong with them, even other chicks. Anyways, thanks, Megumi. Thanks, James. Who else was here that would act like they had half a brain? Thanks, Akatsuki Merchant. This dude is still writing stuff. Dude, I don't want to talk to you all damn day. I actually, like, some of us don't just sit around thinking about chicks all day. We try to do things. There's a lot of things I fault women for, though. I think that's a big assumption. Yeah, I don't see you writing paragraphs about all the faults of chicks, but I do see you trying to crucify me over them. It's cool. We'll be addressing you in the video. The man that stalked Justin for half a year. So that'll be real fun.